on July 16th was program 51, group program 47.
You are correct. That's it.
51 and
So this is
47.
52.
This is no longer a question mark, right? This is
Right.
program
52,
51.
52.
52 and 48.
Okay.
So it's 52.
You may wonder, participants, what the heck we're doing here. And that's a good question. Just trying to keep things a little bit straight.
They're coming in now.
Okay. Here come the participants. And Michael Crow and Joe Waltz and I want to welcome you and thank you for attending Cosmic Fire in depth. Well, that's probably an arrogant attitude. I say in depth. Maybe it's in depth for me. And if you really also want to get into even greater exactitude of thought, you will pick up this kind of thing. If I can just show you or find it or whatever. As you see, all of this has lots of precise comments, but I learned that it was not really possible to be repeating them, that the mode of the video commentary required something a little bit more spontaneous. I don't know if it's less accurate or what, but at least it's a little more spontaneous. So there will be quite a few things said in these written commentaries on Makara that I'm going to say today. And I guess it depends on how deeply you want to go into the subject. So just to let you know that they are there. Now, I suppose that there's a question of what kind of students of the Tibetan's teaching we want to become. And my hope is that we want to go very deep, because that will be the beginning of the excuse me. I have a mouse that my wonderful cat enjoyed chewing, the wire, that is, and therefore it has a certain inconsistency in relation to it. So sometimes it just disappears, as a mouse would in front of a cat. Okay. Well, anyway, you know what we're heading for. Starting around the year 2025, the Tibetan is giving his, starting his third installment of the bridging treatises towards the knowledge of the New Age. I can only think of how wonderful they will be, and it's my deep hope, as I hope it is your hope, to be involved with those teachings somewhere in your next incarnation at least. But already more than we have ever or can ever absorb has been given to us. He tells us, he assures us that that's the case. So we have to have a real foundation over the next 4 or so years, a little bit less than 4 years before what a WASAC of 2025 and before the new group of World Servers Festival of 2026. By that time, we should maybe begin to recognize, if we are sufficiently astute, where the new teaching is coming from. Now, remember, that's where the Theosophical Society really failed. They just didn't get it, and they couldn't recognize that the same Tibetan, Chwalkul, who was providing Blavatsky with so much information, was the one who was working with Alice Bailey. And, you know, there's just been endless nonsense as a result of that lack of recognition. And also, sadly to say, the fact that the same kind of mistake befell Madame Roerich, of the who did wonderful work, of course, but the same kind of mistake befell her, and therefore has created cleavages where there should be none. I mean, Master Moria, Master Kuzumi, Master KH work in the closest cooperation. Why should their students have all these splits and suspicion between them? It's just crazy. And we have to do our best, since we're largely a second-rate group, to overcome that particular tendency. I'm sure you know what I mean. I just want to, of course, welcome you, Anne and Veronica. That was a wonderful comment you made the other night in last night, my night anyway, for the science of being, or identify as being. It really went deeply. Anne from the US, Los Angeles, welcome, Anne. And Annette, I believe, also from New Zealand, Ario from Finland, and Astra, hi, not sure of your whereabouts, and Carl from Pittsburgh, and Catherine from Australia, and Georgina, welcome. I'm not sure where you hail from, and Joe Garceau, anyway, from the US. That's a start, isn't it, Joe? And Joan Schofield, welcome, Joan. Not always are the whereabouts in a physical sense known to me. Karen, maybe it's Karen Gritzka, and welcome then from Oregon. And Martine Dupont, welcome, Martine. I should know where you're from. And Mayra Santos, welcome. And Michelle Glennon, you're a guest, welcome. And Nasa, and Thomas, and Tia from the Washington, DC area, and Vivian, welcome to you. And Zenaidi, I think you're maybe in Switzerland. Anyway, you know, one day I'll get all this straight and I'll know where people are from in a space-time sense. Of course, maybe that's not really the most important thing. Well, in fact, it isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is our unity together in consciousness and with the sense of being the same group, working together in consciousness to serve our fellow human beings in an esoteric manner. If you could see me, I'm just surrounded by cords and mice, well, you know what kind of mice I mean, and mouse pads. And anyway, this is Zoom, so mostly you're just seeing the image. But now let's take a look over here, and we are in a way beginning a new section. And Michael and Joe have just assured me that it is program 52 with group program, I guess 48. That's always four less or something. And I'll have to find out where program 51 fit into it. But, well, there's just such fascinating material here about the foundation of things. The first 100 and something pages of this book are quite etheric physical in a certain sense. Now, of course, it gets really interesting for all of us when we can get into the soul. And that is like, I don't know, 1,000 pages, something like that, where we're really dealing with solar fire. And some of us may get a little bit impatient dealing with matters which had to do with the previous major solar system, in which intelligence was cultivated. The third ray was so very important, and perhaps some of us too were individualized in that solar system, or on its reflection in our solar system that we call the moon chain. So, you know, it doesn't mean that we are all Earth humanity. As a matter of fact, probability is against that, because, you know, we are, well, you know, I can say fairly advanced souls. At least we've come far enough to know that there is a spiritual path, whither it leads, and we want to tread it. Now, there are just millions and millions of people that aren't caring a bit about that possibility. They're at a different stage, just as we were probably back in Atlantean times. So, okay, it's just a question of when you were individualized. You know, today I had the opportunity to listen to something very interesting. We were waiting for some mundane matter. You know, it's nice to have a telephone that works, so we were waiting on that. And there were programs about ancient aliens. And these were, I would say, the interpretations, and I think many of them misinterpretations, by quite scientific and scholarly people who basically thought that humanity came from spaceships and other vessels that landed on Earth and seeded humanity. Well, we have a different story in esotericism, but there is a way to reconcile. They are very somehow devoted to studying Egypt and those great pyramids as if they were sort of the center of all alien stimulation. Well, what is an alien anyway? Do you have to have a spaceship from another planet or something like that? Well, actually, it's very possible that the higher types of lives on our planet, living at a higher point of tension, can have appeared when the gods walked among men. Now, we're getting ready for that all over again. The gods, that is, the masters, the Chohans, the seventh degree Chohans, and even the ancient divine kings of Lemuria did walk among the early humanity. And so something they're saying is true. It's just a question of whether Egypt is the beginning of it all and whether or not the center of all such activity was Egypt. Now, they do link it actually to their favor to Edgar Cayce and stories of Atlantis, but unlike Blavatsky, fed the history by the Tibetan, they look at it as the great flood involving only a couple of islands not far off from Europe. Now, HPB says there were many floods, and she points to even greater floods that occurred even longer ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and in some cases, millions of years ago. So there's a need to convert the often interesting but illusory observations of these scholars and scientists who know nothing really or very little about esotericism into the esoteric worldview, because we cannot discount what they have discovered. They have discovered amazing things, and we know that a lot of it centers around when was the Sphinx created. They say, oh, well, maybe even 10,000 years ago. But according to the more esoteric doctrine, we're dealing with 70,000 years ago. And so the time scale is very, very different. What everybody seems to agree on is that the center of the heyday of Egyptian golden age was not just in 2000, 3000 BC. Not at all. There just wasn't enough time. The alignments were not correct. And all of those pyramids, we've come to think of them, they represent tremendous alignments with the three kings, and not too much was mentioned about Sirius, which was, I think, an error. They should have mentioned more about that. But there were great alignments that occurred, and the pyramids as probably temples of initiation that are spoken of in the old commentary that the Tibetan has given us. It's interesting how the old commentary speaks of the very things some of these scientists are discovering. There is a gallery that ascends. I think they didn't know it existed. And the Tibetan speaks about having to climb through the gallery of tribulation. Of course, it's very symbolic in a way, but then you reach these vast inner chambers that nobody knew existed. So let's just say that the mysteries of whoever built these apparent temples of initiation are only now being revealed, and we have to remain open to what good scientific minds are saying, because they might reveal a hint for us from our own pointing to some realization in our own esoteric doctrine. Well, maybe that was a little bit of a going off on a tangent, but I just, I want to bring in occasionally in the arcane school at the end of every meditation report, we were given the question, have you noticed the work of any member of the new group of world servers? What are they doing? Why are they that? And we have to be aware of how the worldly wise are approaching esotericism. And one day there will be that blending that we rely upon. The subject of the revelation of that which the esoteric doctrine conceals is overwhelming in its revelatory power. There is just so much there. If we give kind of a cursory reading of these books and say, oh, look, they were published back in the 40s and 30s, what do they know of what's going on today? Well, it would be a bit like saying the Bible, was written 2,000 something years ago, and what possible interest could it be to us? See, one day all of these esoteric strands will come together, and we will have a unified presentation of the truth which the masters know, and the Chohans and the high Chohans and the liberated Buddhas and so forth. That's a different truth than we content ourselves with. So let's keep up our penetration into these matters, and I hope some of you who are a bit younger will recognize Master DK's work when it again surfaces. Having put our hand on the hot stove as theosophists and having failed to recognize the work of the same master, it's my hope that the lesson will be learned. So we're reaching a new section here. We finished some work on, I hope I'm showing you the right thing, on the personality ray and karma and the personality ray and the permanent atom. Very, very wonderful, detailed material. So here it is, just making sure that you see it. And now we're taking up on page 77, and it's sort of section 1, part 7 in my written commentaries, the etheric body and prana. Well, how much do we really know about that? That is going to be a subject for the new age. Why? because the great sign Aquarius is intimately connected with the etheric body, and also its related sign Gemini, and also the seventh ray. See, the etheric body is really the real physical body, if I can put it that way. One day, our solar system will have planets which have no dense physical body. All of it will have been transmuted into ether. And that's the destiny of it. But right now, we have these material planets, which tell us that the transmutation is still underway and will be for quite a long time. So there's a footnote here. Do I dare even open it? Let's see, this is from, oh yes, maybe some of you have in your library that big fat green book by Arthur Avalon called The Serpent Power. Now, there's an example, I think, of an Englishman who did real research on the Kundalini and on Prana in general. You know, you can't be an expert in everything, but if you combine, well, maybe Master DK, in my view, comes very close to being a human being who is an expert in a very, very wide range of subjects. And this, you know, he says if you go to Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1, where he starts to talk about the second ray, he says the second ray scholar or student is ever dissatisfied with his highest attainments. So, you know, always questing for wider knowledge. And we might say that when the third ray is added to it, the diversity of what is known can be considerable. You know the story, don't you, that the Buddha, at least in terms of the monadic plane, has a third ray monad. And probably, you know, I can't speak with any kind of unquestioned authority. I don't desire to when I don't really know something, but probably that's true of Master DK. Whereas for the Christ, I think there can be little doubt that we're dealing with a second ray monad from the monadic plane and probably from the logoic plane too. And when we're dealing with Master KH, I don't get the third ray vibration. I get more the Christ vibration of the second ray monad. Well, all of us are a little far away from being able to say we can speak with any kind of real experience or imperience about the monad. But on the other hand, we're moving in that direction. So he says here in the Serpent Power, Prana, or the vital principle, I can add that, you know, it keeps you moving, keeps you alive, right? Keeps you animated. Prana, or the vital principle, is the special relation of the Atma with certain forms of matter, which by the relation of Atma organizes and builds up the means of having experience. I think he's saying, well, it's the ether characterized by Prana is the first archetypal plane. And the forms that we find being built within the etheric body are replicated on the outer levels. And sometimes DK says, well, atom for atom. I sometimes have trouble with that, but okay. He says it's an exact replication. And when he says the Atma, well, that usually means spiritual will. Now, sometimes one has to be careful when that word appears because it can mean the Atman and not the Atma. So the Atman is more the central life principle at the heart of any monad. The Atma is spiritual will. So, just keeping that in mind. This special relation constitutes the individual prana in the individual body. At least we know that prana is stimulated from above, and there is a certain sense in which Atma and ether are like opposites, just like Buddhi and the astral body are opposites, and just like higher mind and lower mind are opposites. So from a certain point of view, the idea of spiritual will or Atma can be justified. The cosmic all-pervading prana is not prana in the gross sense, but is a name for the Brahman as the author of the individual prana. Well, now, when he's talking about Brahman, he is talking about the life principle. Different authors dealing with these subjects use different terminology. When we're getting used to Master DK's terminology, along come authors like Arthur Avalon and T. Subaru, powerful scholar, and just, various ancient and modern authors who vary in their terminology from Master DK. So our work is to somehow make the conversion. How do we translate what they are saying into what Master DK has taught us? So he's talking about cosmic prana. Well, our usual understanding of cosmic prana is all of the forces found on the higher four planes, call them systemic planes, call them solar planes of the cosmic physical plane, namely Buddhi, Atma, monad, logoic. That's what we usually mean by cosmic prana, and in a way, that whole collection of energies and forces is ruled by Uranus. All beings, whether devatas, so that's his plural, I suppose, for devas, men or animals, exist only so long as prana is within the body. Well, you just die without the prana. The so-called silver cord, or maybe you can call it the sutratma, is broken. In the hours of sleep, it isn't broken. It's just vacating, shall we say, the external form, and the concentration is elsewhere. But it's snapped. The electrical connection is snapped at what we normally call death. It is the life duration of all. So here he's connecting prana with life. Prana, or vitality, is the common function of the mind and all since basically the higher pranas keep everything in form, keep everything going. Prana has archetypal designs within it. And when the cords are snapped, then the outer design falls apart. Okay, The Serpent Power by Arthur Avalon. I have the book and I started reading it. I found it heavy going, you know. The man was quite scholarly, I think. Well, see for yourself if you can pick it up from the Theosophical bookstore, or maybe these days, you know, so many of those old books are available in a free version. So you might want to try it that way. So what are we going to be dealing with in this next chapter? Which, goodness, look, it goes on a long time, all the way from it's about 57 pages, something like that, goes up to page 134. So the nature of the etheric body, its purpose and description, and 8 statements. Now, when DK starts offering statements, and he numbers them, sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, however many, 10, you know they're all important. It's just a question of keeping them straight in your mind. Okay. Then Roman numeral number 2, the nature of prana. And he will be distinguishing, as we have learned to expect, between solar prana and planetary prana. And then going on to the prana of forms. There is a big difference between solar and planetary prana. The pores of the body are very much involved with the planetary prana. Solar prana is something altogether more vital and alive. Then he's going to deal with number 3, the function of the etheric body. Maybe we think we know that, but there are always surprising things said. Now, actually, when dealing with the principles of man, you may have noticed something very strange. The etheric body is considered a principle, and prana is also considered a principle. So, you know, both of them have to do with that etheric body. The body as a whole, a principle, and that which animates that body, prana, also considered a principle. So what does he say? It is the receiver of prana, particularly that. But then again, which etheric body are we talking about? If we're talking about the cosmic etheric body, then the higher 4 planes are the receivers of a higher type of prana. As Avalon says, or someone says up there, not the gross kind. We're not just talking about the heaviest kind of prana. It is the assimilator of prana, which means it can use that prana to stay in a vital condition. It is the transmitter of prana, which tells us about its healing potential, its vivifying potential. I'm remembering from esoteric healing about how the first ray healers work, and they, according to the Tibetan, they throw vitality into their patient. This is a lot different from the second ray method, which studies everything about the condition and then applies the will and energy to the best effect. And also, what are the disorders of the etheric body? Well, that ought to be quite interesting, because more and more in the Aquarian age, as it emerges, it's the disorders of the etheric body as the cause of disorders in the physical body, which will be discovered. And sometimes they have a word for those disorders. It's like miasms. You know, it kind of means clouds, shadows, things that just are not working correctly within the etheric body and are causing blockages or causing overstimulation. So you can already feel it that and see it, that medicine is on the verge through vibrational medicine of learning about this archetypal realm, this lowest of the archetypal realms called the etheric body. So it's going to be, the healing arts are going to take a great leap forward. But, you know, you have to clean house first. And that was Hercules' task, wasn't it? He's faced with that terrible accumulation at 3 levels, sort of at the bottom of each aura. The stables have not been cleaned. The stables of King Augeas or Alpheus, or however that's pronounced, he's just neglected them and let the dung pile up. Well, Hercules knows he can't accomplish anything until he gets the 2 energy streams, Alpheus and Peneus, to sweep away all of that accumulated filth. Now, that's the potential for humanity in the coming age, that the filth will be swept away. And let's remember that one of the conditions under which the Christ will see fit to reappear is that a house cleaning has been done. Now, particularly in the realm of politics and religion, it is given. That's where the house cleaning has to be focused. But looked at more widely, humanity has accumulated a lot of filth, and it is poisoning the human psyche. And somehow we have to find the way through control of energy, esoterically applied, to sweep the filth away. Now, the ego, King Alpheus, the lower ego, that is, he wasn't happy about it. And basically he said, Hercules, you tricked me, you know, you used rivers to accomplish your ends, and then he made life dangerous for Hercules. Well, our lower ego still likes to be king of its kingdom. And when the cleaning up occurs, that ego is not necessarily happy, because one of the sources of its rebellion against the angel of the presence is all of those negative personality tendencies born of the presence of the filth. But think about it. Before the Christ can reappear, Pluto will have done its work. Now, Pluto is really like deep cleansing. If you're looking for how Pluto operates, turn to page 7071 in Esoteric Astrology, and you'll see that it's going to drag everything to the surface. Now that's not going to be a pretty sight. It's already happening, and people's hypocrisy and their selfishness is coming right up for examination. So, okay, hopefully they will not be swept by violent emotion, unable to see. So many millions are, and that's where the great battle of the day is occurring. Okay, and then we have here the subject of, it's going to be a big kind of chapter here, really, friends. But already we are inching, finally, towards the solar fire factor, which DK said would be the most popular part of his book, A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. But at least we're getting our foundation, okay? So the next one, Roman numeral 4, macrocosmic and microcosmic ethers. I've been mentioning them, right? So the planetary logos and the ethers. Now, it's always been a question in my mind. How many planes should be counted as etheric for the planetary logos? In other words, for the logos, what really is the status of the higher mind? And does the etheric body of the logos extend to the logoic plane? Well, I have to say, I think it does. And that would be the same 4 cosmic ethers as the solar logos has. But it's like the higher mind for the planetary logos sits in a different position than the higher mind does for the solar logos. The lower 21 subplanes of the, our cosmic physical plane, lower 21 subplanes are the dense physical body of our solar logos. In other words, they reflect that kind of density, which we have not come to expect that the physical body, dense physical body, would be so extensive. But when the idea is that the influence of the solar logos on these different planets can be in some ways very physical. For our Earth, it's the lower 21 subplanes. But what about for our planetary logos? What role do the higher 3 subplanes really play? And I think there's a ambiguity going on there. I don't know if I can really call them etheric, but I don't know if I can really call them dense either. Okay, so the planetary logos and the ethers will be one of our subjects, and cosmic and systemic ethers. Now about that, the higher 4 planes are cosmic ethers. The systemic ethers are way down on our normal systemic physical plane, and they are the etheric part of that physical plane. Remember, the lower ethers are physical. And one day, as I said, you will have planets that just don't have that dense part to them anymore. Their real physical body will be etheric. Now, will we have to wait until the next solar system for that to occur? Because everything keeps moving up. Even individualization occurred for us on this chain involving the higher mental plane and the projection of the solar angel as the angel of the presence and the anchoring of the solar angel in a mental way. That's how individualization occurred. But in the next solar system, and I certainly don't know how this will take place, individualization will take place with respect to the monadic plane. Now that's really a big jump. Okay, and then we go on and look at the protective purposes of the etheric body. Well, you know by now with your readings that if the etheric webs are burned away prematurely, you're going to let in all kinds of health reducing and dangerous influences. A whole lot of influences from the lower astral plane, the lower subplanes number 6 and 7 will be let in, and they can create great chaos on the physical plane, because it's a bit like what we call the hell worlds walking the earth. Now, already you do see some mediums that are allowing that kind of stuff in. And if there's really heavy use of drugs and so forth, those etheric webs are prematurely burned away. Now, one day they must be rightly burned so there can be a complete integration. But people do like to force things and have experiences prematurely for which they are not ready. Oh yeah, I had an experience once, I'll tell you. It was really funny. I was going to Minneapolis to see the opera Tosca. I was going all by myself. It was a long time ago. You may know that opera. It's Wonderful by Puccini, and very dramatic. Anyway, I just happened to arrive on the day that the students took over the university. They took over the student union, and there was no place to rest or sleep or anything. Anyway, somehow I found lodging in the student-controlled student union. And I don't know, to pass the time, I was playing the piano. And suddenly behind me, he wasn't really, wasn't awful looking. I mean, he was pleasant enough, but a very disheveled man appeared whose, I realized his nervous system was completely shot. He was just like an open door to God knows what. Obviously there had been a lot of drugs, and he just had totally lost control. Which would mean, of course, that the etheric webs that are protective had been burned away. way ahead of time, way before the time that the individual could handle that integration process. So basically, I'm playing the piano, and there he is shaking and trembling behind me and making all these sounds that who knows where they came from. But I've seen, you know, the effect of drugs on people and how rather than give the true spiritual experience, instead they take away the possibility, and as DK tells us, they line the person up for repair work for lives to come. And then we get into, finally, and you know, esoteric healing has so much on death, death and the etheric body, and microcosmic death, which is us, what death is for us, and then macrocosmic pralaya. Well, how many incarnations has our planetary logos had? How many incarnations has our solar logos had? We can pretty well say they are the same number because the planetary logos is somehow part of the solar logos, and the solar logos has had so far and is in the middle of its 5th incarnation. This is not just the 2nd incarnation, this is the 2nd major incarnation, and another incarnation for our planet and for the planet and for the solar logos is due with the next solar system. And then it's difficult to understand, but some kind of synthetic 7th incarnation in the eternal now is also destined. So, you know, if you really want to know about the death process, microcosmically considered, go to esoteric healing, where many, many tens of pages are given to that process, and what kind of light you have to use, what kind of incense you have to use to facilitate the transition. The Tibetans, they know all about how to make that transition consciously. Some of you may have seen that kind of inventive little movie called The Little Buddha, something like that. And they were looking for the replacement for the Dalai Lama, and you know, they couldn't find it, and they imagined somehow that the qualities had been distributed among 2 boys and a girl. And that led to interesting interactions with the parents of these young people, because they were from the West, and very new idea in the West that the child should be trained to be a replacement for a high spiritual figure in the East. But anyway, the man who was the chief monk, he had heart problems eventually, and the time for him to die came. And so he sat down one night and, basically knowing the methods, meditated himself into the next world. So all that was left in the morning was the outer body, which, you know, they submitted to the flames and so forth. But the real man had gone on. He knew the method. And one day we will know the method as well. Okay, so that covers, I think, what we will be looking at. I realize I've given kind of an overview of things, and here they are all broken out. Look at those 8 statements. They are very important. And then the divisions. Very good information. And then dividing the prana from the solar system and from the planet and from a human being and from an atom of matter. All these things are distinguished from each other, and we're still working on the 8th statement, some 7 or 8 pages later. We'll be getting into that. The nature of prana we discussed, and the distinction between solar prana and planetary prana, and the prana forms. And let's see what chart number 2 gives us. Might be interesting. Oh goodness, yeah. This is one of those important charts, which, however, is not entirely accurate up here, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. And let's see here if I can go any farther. Let's see, browse. I guess I'm browsing, and so forth. I mean, I just think a very good material lies ahead for our examination on the etheric body, and all the things that I went over in a large and general sense are filled out here over approximately 60 pages, something like that. So the disorders of the etheric body, functional, organic, and static, that will be interesting, and so forth. I'm not going to go any further right now, although, you know, of course I'm tempted to, and if we had all day I would. But at least you see what's coming, quite a bit. And quite a bit of real interest, because when you reach the etheric body, you are already reaching something which reflects the status of the soul. Now maybe that's hard to understand. The master can assess our condition by looking at the etheric body and the activation of triangles within the etheric body. He can also naturally assess the condition of the causal body, the egoic lotus, which tells him perhaps even more precisely who he is dealing with. Do you ever wonder, you know, when Master DK gathers disciples towards the periphery of his ashram. Do you ever wonder how he does it? You know, he says, I have studied you. I have studied you. What's he studying? And we can say, well, it's not only the personality, which tends not to interest him so much. He is studying that first archetypal realm, the lower ether, and he's especially studying the condition of the egoic lotus, which in a way, as the atomic triangle of mental unit, astral permanent atom, etheric permanent atom, which contains the main elements of the personality. So it's quite an effort on his part, and he obviously doesn't want to make mistakes, because that, you know, unless karma dictates that he must bring someone in for whom the chances might be maybe not so good, but it's required that the person be brought into his group. And there was at least one such individual, and maybe more. I talked to a friend deeply versed in these matters, and he said the amount of attention which Master DK has given to the students on an individual basis, and of course on a group basis, is extraordinary when compared with other masters. So we really are under very good supervision, and we've been given a wealth of knowledge and wisdom which is rare indeed. So hopefully we do appreciate the offering, and somehow fit ourselves to make the most of it. Okay, so now let's see what you might want to say from any notes you have taken, or what you may have written, or whatever, and we will.
Michael.
Yes, Tuya, is that
Yeah.
you?
Sorry, I don't have my headset. Do you hear me well?
Very well.
Okay, just few thoughts. I am just thinking about that. What you were saying about the DK, how much the emphasis have been put on disciples, and I think it is exactly proving that how special times we are living at the moment. What is possible to humanity, and then you were talking about the death process, and it just reminded me this one it's not exactly documentary, but it has no documentary aspects in it about Egypt, and how it was also studied, and the death was studied in Egypt, and that ancient ruins that had been found, which is dedicated to Serapis, Apis, the bull, and there these huge graves, 24 tombs, where has been only found in one, even though it was dedicated to Apis, the bull. Only in one of them was some kind of how do you say in English?
Remains
Remains of the bull or the cow, and the others were empty. And there has been some scientist who has been starting to develop idea that the whole mummifying process actually was somehow related to the substance of the body to prepare in that kind of states, because there were also those chemicals around the body which can produce fire. And that has made me think about this, and this time, would it be for us to study the fire, how it is related to etheric body? TK is saying that we should burn the bodies, which is again related to the fire. Was it so that in Egypt it was already the science which actually made the body dissolve or dematerialize into the states, because this balsamic process was so and mummifying process was so scientific? What they did first put the body into the salt for 2 weeks, which was sucking all the liquids away. And then in those tombs that nothing has been found. So was there happening the similar kind of process that what was happening to Jesus? What is then the proof in the Turin spout? And all of this, because if you think that the etheric body, it is from all of the bodies, it is very much under the monad, because the life essence is brought in via the etheric body, of course through all the bodies. But when you think about the prana that we breathe in, and that's why prana is very fiery. It's not liquidy, if we think about, or liquid. It's more related to prana, to the fire, and in that sense to that process of acne in all of this and through all of this system, present solar system. So and that's why that sense also that the etheric body is so much under the law. Maybe,
yes,
of course, everything, but when you study how the etheric body is functioning, it's so much under law, and in that sense related to monad and the spirit. But for us to become aware of this whole process, what we go through, I think we could study fire in that sense, that how the fire is actually releasing us more than just the physical substance. There has to be some bigger mystery behind it, in that what I think maybe Egyptians were knowing and what has been forgotten.
Yes, I think both the Tibetan methods and the Egyptian methods rely a lot upon the sign Scorpio. They are both deeply occult. And well, we know that for sure about the study of death within Tibet. But we also hear from the Tibetan that a deeply occult esoteric school will be, advanced school, will be established in Egypt. Now, the difference to me anyway, as I look at this, is that just thousands upon thousands of mummies were created. Now, they weren't necessarily in the kind of temple we're talking about. There were burial grounds, and the preservation of the body as a help to the ascending spirit, I guess, was practiced in Egypt. The very opposite, in a way, was practiced in Tibet as it completely liberated the inner principles from the grasp of the outer form. Both of them had their reasons, I would say. So we have to, we have to study, as you suggest, what mummification was all about, and the Egyptian philosophy about what happened to the departed one. We know the departed one would go to another world. Now, why was the preservation of the body needed in the mummification process? That's what we have to get to the bottom of. Yeah, well, you can tell Tuya and I saw the same documentaries. and what was it? The Ancient Alien Society or something like that? Anyway.
No, they were, yes, they were like trying to find the relationship to those who came to Earth. But it has different aspects, and of course those who want to like dig that this is the proof about that is how the human mind is functioning, but you don't have to think about that this way, because they had many good aspects of
they did discover things that we can transfer over into our esoteric worldview and have those things discovered make sense in terms of our esoteric worldview. DK,
and what, sorry.
Yeah, he talks about the gallery of tribulation. Well, there it is, right there, one of the inner galleries or corridors.
It was the Great Pyramid, where was this huge corridors. But what was related to this temple, it has been, I don't know when it was found, but what was for me so amazing was that there was 24 huge tombs, or huge, what is that where you have a dead body? Coffins. They were the stone coffins, and the lid coffin, the stone what was there was 25,000 tons. They were so huge and so heavy. So and this the number 24, and because it was the Apis temple, and it was related to Serapis. So there is
Apis,
that's why there is this deep relationship to hierarchy via the Brotherhood of Luxor and Master Serapis.
Yeah, basically the rays involved in the whole Egyptian presentation are the first ray, the fourth ray, and the seventh ray. And these are the same rays that you find in the establishment of Masonry, which basically came from that tradition. So there are just many mysteries, and we have to stay alert. But I would suggest that one of the big things is that when Master DK starts to write again, however he does it, that there be at least some among us who actually recognize the difference between him and the many pretenders, as already the pretenders are emerging, shouting the secrets of the ages from the rooftops. The pretenders are here. I am DK, I am DK, I am the amanuensis. Okay, somehow we have to discriminate. Thank you, Tuya, for those thoughts.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's see. Is it Michael or Joe that's going to help us with?
Yeah, there's just a comment saying thank you for the blessing and unity. There's the Arthur Avalon books comments, and then Anne Veronica speaks of the miasma, Greek word, which is defined as whatever causes moral or spiritual contamination, what causes disease, epidemics, or damage, synonyms, contamination, infection, and dirt.
Yeah, yeah. The miasmas will be basically the cause of our physical ills will be discovered to be largely etheric and emotional. Not yet, because of the state which humanity has not yet reached, will the causes be particularly mental. So we're still at those stages where etheric miasmas and astral glamours and misleading desires and so forth, they will be the causes of the physical ills. But we're just on the borderland of being able to discover that. Now, yeah. So that's what have we got there?
And then a question, at what sub-level of the etheric physical are most humans born today?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a percentage chart given 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%. And by the time we reach the fourth initiation, we are dealing with the disappearance of the physical body, basically. But a body of fire begins to form, and 100% atomic matter is characteristic of those who are taking the fourth initiation. 100% atomic matter on all levels of the personality. Probably, I would guess, before the disappearance of that personality. And so I think we begin with the first initiation at 25% atomic matter, at the second at 50%, and the third at 75%. That is already the majority. So what can people really reach? Now, if I can find one of these charts that Tuya made for us, I may be able to elaborate a little better. Okay, I'm going to try to do that. And Michael, you let me know if I somehow miss the possibility of actually showing people what I'm talking about. Okay. Now going in there. Okay. Now let's see. Maybe that's one we can. Maybe that's one we can use. Now take a look down here, and let's see. How do I?
It's right up top on the left, right above the egoic on the chart, right above egoic is a plus with a magnifying glass to zoom in.
No.
Above egoic. Yeah, right. Go to egoic, the word egoic with your mouse.
Okay, I'm looking for the word. I'm looking for the word egoic.
Yeah, it says the egoic lotus and the centers. It's the title of the chart.
Okay.
Now go straight up from that. with your mouse.
Yeah,
Move your mouse up
yeah.
and to the left or to your, yeah, and you'll see the plus sign with the magnifying glass.
I don't, unfortunately, above egoic, there is no plus sign for me. Okay, add 2. There's something up here, add 2.
It's on a black, you
Yeah,
know, the whole
Just-
thing is outlined in black and it's up at the very top, like a little magnifying glass. There
there
you
it
go.
is. You see it now, Michael? Because I have control of your screen right now.
Yeah, I don't see it, but there it is. Okay, now we can stop. Now I wonder how I can, okay, we'll take a look at these lower levels. Basically, the question was, at what level of ether are people usually born? It depends. Maybe the average non-aspiring personality-oriented person has only the circles of the 4th ether involved down here. Maybe the intelligent people, as they move from off one of the rays of attribute into a ray of aspect, has the 3rd ether more prominent, or at least being activated in their system. Now, the heart center is contained in the 2nd ether. And the people who are beginning to respond more to the possibility of the first initiation may have this heart center activated. Now, if we go up here to the highest ether, well, it depends on how far along we are. Now, remember, these are subplanes, what we're looking at here. However, the subplanes themselves are divided into 7, which it doesn't show. It just would be too complicated. And not only will the head center be found on one of those subplanes, but the ajna center too will be found on one of the subplanes. And I would tend to think that this ether will be very important for someone who is just transferring onto the Syrian method of initiation and has taken the 3rd degree. There you will have a greater amount of this atomic focus. So I'm not sure there's any general sense of answering the question except to say the degree of evolution will determine the degree of activation of any of the ethers of the various subplanes and subplanes. Now, having a subplane means that there are 49 possibilities of focus on the systemic etheric physical plane, and 49 here, and 49 here, and so forth. So these are real technicalities, but just say, the further you have advanced on the initiatory process, the greater will be the amount of atomic matter, and proportionally less of the normal type of etheric matter. I would say always the most occult of any system of subplanes are the highest two. The lower five belong to Brahma. The sixth from below belongs to Vishnu or Surya, and the seventh from below, or the very first one, belongs to Shiva. Now, when you've started to really cultivate your will after the first initiation, first real initiation, which is the third, then the activation of the atomic level is very strong. And I would say the heart level is very strong. And actually, we're told somewhere that the knowledge petals of the egoic lotus by that time begin to kind of disintegrate. And instead, what we're going to have is intuition and will replacing the usual testimony of the mind. Unless, of course, we're dealing with one of the ashrams which, let's say, stays on the, up here, on the lowest level of the spiritual triad. Certain scientific ashrams remain there. But the influence of intuition from Buddhi and of Atma, spiritual will, gets very strong and affects the activation of the subplanes below. You know how DK says, look, you don't really take initiation in the astral body or in the lower mental body. No, it's all taken up to a certain point in the causal body with a reflexive effect upon the lower mental body and the astral body, and also, I suppose, the etheric physical body. So however the rod of initiation is wielded, and by whomever, whether it's the Christ or Sanat Kumara, or even later, the planetary logos, but that's, already the seventh initiation. There is a reflexive effect in the lower personality, which say, hey, but my mind has been affected. My astral body has been affected by whatever experience I had. My ethers are all charged up. What's happened? It's a reflexive effect of the actual initiation being taken inside the causal body. He deals with that in initiation, human and solar. So I hope that's relatively clear. There's no simple answer. It just depends on your stage of evolution. Anything else here?
Yeah. Let's see. Am I still able to? Okay, I'm still unmuted. A question from Anne Veronica. When we say physical body, we actually mean the etheric brain. So by the law of correspondences, can we say the four higher systemic planes are the physical body of the planetary logos? Is this his etheric brain? Can we think in that way?
We can think that the etheric brain of the planetary logos is located on the highest ethers. Yes, we can think that, but remember that this physicality of the etheric body is a destined process. It doesn't exist in that way yet. What does exist is a dense physical body, the energies of which have to be transmuted or translated into ether. Now, when that, I'm pretty sure that in the next solar system, that will have largely been accomplished. The question is, how much will be accomplished in this solar system, which is halfway through its process. Just go to Cosmic Fire, page 384, and you'll see, you know, how far progressed we are in our process. So we're not going to have overnight the disappearance of dense physicality. In other words, the way that the solar logos influences the earth and has kind of a dense physical presence will still remain the lower 21 subplanes. And then when we look for the etheric brain, we will, as you suggest, look for its location within the four cosmic ethers. So we have a physical brain of the, let's say, of the planetary logos, lower 18 or 21 subplanes, and an etheric brain, which has to be located on the cosmic ethers. Now, the question is where, I suppose. Where is this? And it would have to be relatively low within the cosmic ethers, because where is the dense physical brain located microcosmically? You need an analogy, don't you? So the dense physical brain is composed of material, liquids, gases, that kind of thing, way down. Let's see, I don't think I can move it. Yeah, there, I guess I can move it. Down here, the dense physical brain will be found on these lower three levels. What are the lower three levels when it comes to the cosmic ethers? Are they on the Buddhic plane, or in some strange sense, you know, are they on the, well, they have to be located within the dense part of the expression of the planetary logos. And the dense part is the lower 18 or 21 subplanes. Now, remember, mentality is gaseous, right? Gaseous. Astrality is liquid. And the densest of all is more what we consider to be the solid. It's not actually that, but it's not liquid, it's not gaseous, it's in some respect the densest of all. And in our physical brain involves all three dimensions. It involves vital airs, it involves liquid, it involves gases, and it involves some kind of material. So we'll just follow out the analogy, I would say, remembering that it's not going to be immediately by any means that we can say, well, the only real physical body of any planet is its etheric body. It may be true to come, but meanwhile, the dense physical body is still dragging along, and we have to transmute it somehow. Okay, anything else?
Joe, thanks you for your previous answer. And then Jen Oliviera shares an experience with miasma. She said she had morning sickness where after waking that she had to vomit a little bile and then was fine through the day. I often did this outside. One time I saw the prana or miasma that was exiting the body. It was like tendrils of white smoke. I've also seen this at night outside in the dark, these white tendrils coming off the body. It looks like wisps of smoke, or sometimes can feel this from another's body. Not see it, but feel the expression of it, especially if it is off balance, discordant, unless this is just an astral aspect.
Okay, that is interesting. You know, it's the kind of material that you would be putting in your spiritual diary. He says anything of a phenomenal kind and any other inner experiences we put into our spiritual diary. And it's in the collection of these experiences that we really begin to make sense out of what is happening. So, yeah, well, maybe when we study the difference between solar prana and planetary prana, we're going to come into the kind of thing that you're talking about. The planetary prana is much more liquidic than is the solar prana. Solar prana is a higher type of energy altogether, and we have to learn how to transfer from reliance upon planetary prana to its higher correspondence as solar prana. It's going to be a pranic age into which we are entering. Pranas high and low will be the subject of our discussion and learning during the next 2,000 years.
Michael, just a little addition to this, that when we think about the third degree, then we first time are able to start to use from the sun, the prana directly. And before that, we are using the prana, which is circulating in the aura of the earth. And I think that is telling about that our process towards this present solar system, how the body actually should be functioning in this solar system only from the third degree on. And they still are our first baby steps towards the real body, what we should have. And that's why I think about this fire. To study the Agni is so important for us to really scientifically begin to think about it, because Egyptians were using that announcing that everything what the human being was announcing was the sign of that those who were following our life here, those who were listening and looking, then that was the sign for them to start to cultivate that person, that disciple. And that's why when we are living the time of the fire signs, for instance, like the Leo, and I forgot to say earlier about it, that they had figured something, that they are completely changing the idea of how old these pyramids are and how old these sphinx. They were looking like 10,500 or 12,500 years. And then when Sphinx, that the direction where the Sphinx is looking would have been 10,500 years ago, the constellation of Leo. So all of these, going back to this idea that when we have fire elements emphasized by the astrology, they are good times for us to really try to understand what the fire is and how our etheric body is functioning under the fire, because that is one of the key things for us and for the initiation.
Yeah, the name gives it away. You know, Agni is the Lord of Fire. So if we look at all these lives that have higher and lower correspondences, we have Agni Shvatas, we have Agni Suryans, and we have Agni Chaitans. So Agni is the Lord of Fire, and it tells us that the elemental lives and their higher correspondences in the cosmic ethers are all connected with fire. There are, you know, he tells us there are lower Agni Suryans and Buddhic Agni Suryans, and we can just generalize from there. We know there are lower Agnishvatas, mental elementals, and there are higher Agnishvatas. And we're going to have to say the same thing about Agni Chaitans, maybe connected with the lowest levels where volcanoes are operating and all that kind of thing, all the way up to the spiritual will, where we are likely to find Agni Chaitans of a higher nature. All of them representatives of fire. And what is fire in this case? It's the personality of the solar logos. See, Agni, beyond our normal exposure to Agni, goes all the way up to the, at least to the 18th subplane from below of the solar logos. So we really are living within fires. And, you know, that's something that, as you're suggesting, it has to be taken into consideration. Thank you for those thoughts. Okay, anything else, Michael?
I don't know if you answered this. And Veronica thanks you and asks if these high entities need density like we do.
Do they need density?
Yes. Do they
Well,
need density?
they're involved in a transmutative process, and we have to say they're part of the planetary logos and part of the solar logos, and they are operating upon density. So the question is, need? Well, they express through density for redemptive purposes. That's what I would say about that. I'm sure they'll be quite relieved when the transmutation has taken place. I saw one student who said that, oh, the transmutation is right around the corner, and before you know it, there'll be no physical body to the earth and so forth. But I think this individual was way ahead of herself in predicting that kind of disappearance of the dense physical body of the planetary logos and of other planetary logoi. It'll happen, but remember, we're only halfway through this particular solar system. Yeah.
And,
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike. Yep.
And Veronica, there are many fire at present in Greece and Turkey. Is there something that one can do to ask for the fires to subdue?
Well, we don't know their purpose. Of course, humanity through Australia, through Western United States, through Greece, Turkey, through up here now, for the first time, a very, very big fire up here in Finland, which is very rare since it's such a moist climate. These things are appearing. And I would just say that they're calling for a mobilization of humanity's awareness of its role in exacerbating the balance within the planet. So it's calling for new approaches to planetary responsibility. I think that if DK had been writing about the problems of humanity now, today, he would definitely include the ecological problem as a major factor that humanity must attend to. He didn't really include that, you know. Maybe at the time it was not so pressing, but now with the seventh ray coming in, and Aquarius, yes, the whole question of ecological balance is being drawn to the attention of partially very selfish humanity. Well, what's going to happen to my big oil company? What's going to happen to my coal company? You know, what's going to happen to the way I usually use energy? How much will my economy of my country or myself be compromised if I really think about my responsibility to the planet? Now, these are selfish considerations, but I do believe that the situation will become, and probably is already, very dire. There will be submergences and parts of cities will be going underwater and floods more frequent, and fires more frequent, and deaths from these things more frequent. And humanity will finally have to at least look together for a solution. DK said humanity will discover that it alone cannot come up with the solution, but at least the orientation has to be correct, and they will invoke hierarchy at that time when things become sufficiently dire. It's not a pleasant thought to have to live through that, but we have to cure this disease we call human selfishness. So I'm not sure how much we can do before humanity really begins to wake up. And also, of course, the people in a nation. That's a subset of humanity. They have to wake up to what they can possibly do and how they can help. Okay. Is that it, Michael?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, friends, I don't think there's anything tomorrow to you. Is there? I don't think so. It's Saturday. And usually on Saturday, we don't have anything unless we have full moon or new moon issues. But on Sunday, maybe we do have the new moon.
Yeah, the new moon is in Leo on 8th. Zoom.
Okay. So we'll be back then. And on the same day, we have the Esoteric United Nations, where we're trying to do something for the nation in which we live and for the harmonization of the nations in general. So look, we all want to thank you, Tuya, myself, Michael, Joe, BL, Michael, Stacy, all the people who are intensively working on the communications team. And there are some others too that help us at the time of the conferences, particularly. We want to wish you all the very best, lots of love and many blessings. And maybe someone can teach me how to find that that plus sign, which just isn't existing at the moment in my visibility. Okay, so
Yeah, your mouse is on the line that it's on, where you just click the 3 dots. If you just go left and keep going left and share, that's edit, keep going left. Keep going left. You're kind of stopped at edit and create.
where?
Yeah, your mouse is stopped at edit and create if you keep going left.
There's nothing that says edit. Oh, edit and create. Is that it?
Yeah, now go left from there.
Yeah,
Keep going. Move your mouse
yeah.
a lot. Left, keep going. It's not moving right now. So
And there's no plus.
there,
Except
now you went to add 2, but if you go to the right, looks like a magnifying glass. It's not a plus.
Yep.
In the
It's
center of
not
your
it.
screen, there's a heart. Do you see the heart?
Nope. Not there. No. No heart. No heart. Okay, go
See
ahead.
if you can see if you can follow me right here. Do you see this?
You're pointing to nothing. Just security.
Okay. So
If you press it, what happens? It just gets bigger and bigger, or how do you make it smaller? Okay, you are basically, on my bar, you're hitting participants and a blank space. Well, anyway, we'll talk about it. I don't want to take people's time. Okay, friends, that's it for now. And let's see, how do I stop the recording?